Rafiq in Rancho Mirage, California. Rafiq, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon, Tom.
Hey.
I wanted to confront your guest. He's really promoting a false narrative and trying to portray institutionalized racism, as specifically a political partisan type of thing. Redlining pre-existed the Dodd-Frank bill by over 50 years. And then when you're talking about racism or structural racism, the objective of that had more to do with white privilege. And Thomas Jefferson was the first Democratic Republican. So racism or white privilege pre-existed any idea of a political party or that whole narrative. So when he wants to speak about institutionalized racism, you have a society is comprised of various institutions. You have the religious institution, education, political, and those things. So just to try to relegate it into a small sphere is just...
Well, you got your one Dodd-Frank talking point,
no,
John.
I don't have a talking point.
Talk to Rafiq.
Well, you know what? And that's interesting that he mentioned. He pointed out something I think was very, very important. You got your white, wealthy liberals that exist in a Democratic Party that think that they know all that's good for Black Americans, and they're gonna, kind of pat them on the head and say, okay, we're gonna do something here and there and try to, help you out, but really have no considerations whatsoever to pull African Americans out of poverty.
And then you got the white upper middle class Republicans who are just saying screw them.
No, I don't think that's the case. I just named 4 pieces of legislation which will bring Black Americans back to the top.
And white Americans. No, stopping.
We're talking about something that mainly impacts African Americans. African Americans are the ones that are being shot at higher rates by the police.
Sentencing reform is wonderful. You're going to find all the Democrats are supporting this, and the fact that
let me tell you what they're going to do.
Republicans
let me tell you what they're going to do, because this is how it works. Democrats do not want to see Republicans put forth pieces of legislation that impacts African Americans in a positive way and see it be successful. So this is what they're going to do, because these bills haven't yet hit markup yet. They're going to try to add amendments to it, which is going to allow for it to be a poison pill that it won't pass. So they can point
So going back to Paul's question, there is no
hey,
legislation that you can point to that Republicans have promoted over the last 125 years that specifically helps Black people.
Actually, I just gave you 4 pieces right there.
But they're not. But you said that they haven't even hit markup. These are not laws.
They have been.
Paul's question was name a
said
law
sponsored.
The Republicans put into place.
He said legislation being sponsored. Those were his words.
Geez, so
he said sponsored.
We are splitting hairs at this level.
This is what he said. I'm answering the question very direct.
The 150 years, or it's been longer than that since the Republican Party, got taken over by the fat cats, the 1870s. When the railroad billionaires took over the Republican Party, and it ceased to be the party of racial balance, or whatever the proper word would be, at the end of slavery, let's say, and became the party of the billionaires. From that time until this, in that entire 100 and some odd years, the only thing you can name are 4 pieces of legislation that have not yet been even marked up, much less brought to the floor for a vote.
Let me ask you this, Tom, and then I really want to get your thoughts on this thing.
Rafiq, thank you for the call. I got to.
Okay, we got to go to break?
No, I was just thanking Rafiq.
So let me ask you this, and I'm really interested in getting your thoughts on this. We got a Black president who was overwhelmingly supported by African Americans, and I talked about this in my piece in The Hill that just came out on Friday. I was in a green room of your show, I may say, of your show, and the conservative commentator, he came to me and he struck up a conversation with me, and he said, hey, I don't see how you do it. White conservative commentator. How do you go on national television every week and you criticize the president on certain issues? He said, if I were Black, I would never be able to do it because he's the first Black president and there would be an emotional tie. I took that narrative and I pretty much used it in the same way the Republican base adores Donald Trump. A number of folks, not everybody, a number of folks, they stick with him regardless of the realities. I can't see him having a path to winning a general election against anybody, especially the way he speaks. If he changed his tune, perhaps, maybe. But we think about the African-American community that supported President Obama by upwards 93% for the second term. I think it was 96 or 98%.
We're running out of time.
For the first term. What has he done for African Americans? Don't mention health care.
The largest middle class tax cut in the history of the United States.
What tax cut was that?
It was the stimulus bill of 2000.
You talking about the one that he continued under President Bush?
No, this is
because that was he pretty much took.
Most Republicans don't realize
and he continued it.
That the largest middle class tax cut in the history of the United States was done by Barack Obama. The largest tax cut for billionaires was done by George W. Bush. No, I'm not talking about that. This is a completely separate piece of legislation.
He implemented this
He saved Chrysler. He saved GM. We went from losing 800,000 jobs a month, mostly at the bottom of the job category, which would include a lot of African Americans. We went from losing 800,000 jobs a month to now gaining 300,000 a month. We increased education spending. He increased student loan. He decreased the cost of student loans. He strengthened the hate crime laws. He passed the Affordable Care Act. You mentioned that. He expanded CHIPS, the Children's Health Insurance Program.
I said
he's
for
enforcing the child labor
Americans, specifically
Wall
for
Street
African
reform,
Americans,
credit card reform.
And
These
I know
are all
that probably came from the Thom Hartmann Institute. Anyway,
he ended predatory lending to the soldiers. He got troops paid for stop loss time.
So if I may address what you're saying, because I know you said we're running out of time. I get that.
So my list continues.
I know Thom Hartmann Institute. I get it.
This is the legislation that's passed
in
74 days.
You mentioned, he's adding jobs to the economy, and the unemployment rate has gone down. But what no one ever mentions that these jobs that are being added to the economy are minimum wage jobs.
Yeah, this is
President
Perry's
Obama
he
is the greatest job creator of minimum wage jobs in this country. To me, that's not good enough. So me as a millennial, I'm 28. I'm sure some callers are going to say, oh, this is a 28-year-old kid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. As a millennial, I go to college, I go to school 4 years, and maybe I got $100,000 in debt. This is what I have to look for under the Obama economy. I'm going to graduate in debt, and then I'm going to go live in my parents' basement and work as a Walmart greeter.
You are explaining.
That's the minimum wage job. That's the system economy under President Barack Obama.
You are absolutely describing the consequence of 34 years of Reaganomics. And Obama hasn't overturned Reaganomics, and Clinton didn't overturn Reaganomics. So, yeah, I'm with you. Gianna Caldwell. At Gianna Caldwell is the Twitter handle.